As you remember, in the previous episode, we saw that Muhammad's wife and his uncle both died in the year 619, the year of sorrow. And because his uncle was also his protector, Muhammad lost his protection, which meant he could be killed by anyone without revenge. Now we're going to see how this story is going to continue.
Muhammad was attacked by the elite of Mecca, and even children hurled dust and insults at him. Together with his adopted son Zayd, he left Mecca for the city of Taif to invite people to Islam. The chiefs of the local tribes of Taif received him but ignored his message. After a while, they were afraid that his stay would be an obstacle for their relation with Mecca, and they left him to be dealt with by street urchins and the riffraff of the town. By rejecting Muhammad's religion, the people of Taif ordered their children to throw rocks and stones at Muhammad and Zayd ibn Haritha to make them leave the city and never come back. Muhammad and Zayd ibn Haritha were finally turned out by mocking and jeering crowds. The rocks that were thrown at Muhammad and Zayd by the Taif children caused them to bleed. Both were wounded and bleeding as they left Taif behind them. Muhammad bled so profusely from the stoning that his feet became clotted to his shoes. Once Muhammad and Zayd ibn Haritha were outside the city walls, Muhammad almost collapsed. They went a short distance outside of the town and stopped in an orchard that belonged to two Meccans who were there at the time. The owners of the orchard had seen Muhammad being persecuted in Mecca, and on this occasion they felt some sympathy towards their fellow townsmen. They sent a slave who took Muhammad into his hut, dressed his wounds, and let him rest and recuperate until he felt strong enough to resume his journey across the rough terrain between Taif and Mecca. The owners also told their Christian slave named Adas from Nineveh to give a tray of grapes to the visitors. Muhammad thanked God by saying, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Adas became curious and inquired about the identity of Muhammad, who presented himself. The conversation that ensued led Adas to declare his acceptance of Islam, so that Muhammad's journey to Taif did not prove entirely fruitless. He stayed preaching to the common people for 10 days. Muhammad did not return openly to Mecca, because he realized that if he entered the city, he would be killed. Thus, there was no other place to go. Muhammad sent Zayd to seek asylum, istijara, for him among 4 nobles in the city. One of them, Mut'im ibn Adi, responded, which meant protection of the tribe of Banu Nawfal. Muhammad could now return safely to Mecca. At the pilgrimage season of 620, Muhammad met 6 men of the Khazraj tribe from Yathrib. During the early 7th century, Yathrib, a large agricultural oasis, was inhabited by 2 types of population: the Jews and the pagan Arabs. The Jews there had 3 principal clans. These tribes had the upper hand with their large settlement and huge property. The Arab pagans had 2 tribes, Aus and Khazraj. These 2 were at war with each other for already 100 years, including the other tribes, with many casualties and chaos in Yathrib. The traditional rule was that to bring back law and order, a neutral man with authority should act as arbitrator to think of a solution. As you remember, Muhammad was known to be a good arbitrator. Furthermore, the Arabs of Yathrib lived in close proximity of the Jews and knew they were awaiting the arrival of a prophet. Muhammad told them he was the prophet of God and explained to them the doctrines of Islam and recited portions of the Quran. Impressed by this, the 6 men from Yathrib embraced Islam. At the pilgrimage of 621, 5 of them brought 7 others with them. These 12 informed Muhammad of the beginning of gradual development of Islam in Medina, and took a formal pledge of allegiance to Muhammad's hand, promising to accept him as a prophet, to worship none but one God, and to renounce certain sins such as theft, adultery, and murder. This is known as the first pledge of Al-Aqaba. At their request, Muhammad sent with them Mus'ab ibn Umar to teach them the instructions of Islam. Mus'ab ibn Umar was very successful in preaching the message of Islam, and many people became Muslim in Yathrib. The next year, at the pilgrimage of 622, a delegation of around 75 Muslims of the Aus and Khazraj tribes from Yathrib came. And in addition to restating the formal promises, they also assured Muhammad of their full support and protection if the latter would migrate to their land. They invited him to come to Yathrib as an arbitrator to reconcile among the hostile tribes. This is known as the second pledge of Al-Aqaba. Following the pledges, Muhammad encouraged his followers to migrate to Yathrib, and in a span of 2 months, nearly all the Muslims of Mecca migrated to Yathrib. Muhammad received divine direction to depart from Mecca. He began preparing and informed Abu Bakr, his trusted friend. On the night of his departure, Muhammad's house was besieged by men of the Quraysh, who planned to kill him in the morning. He asked Ali to lie down on his bed and pretend to be him, assuring him of God's protection. Muhammad possessed property of the Quraysh given to him in trust and handed it over to Ali with the instruction to return it to its owners. Muhammad secretly left the city together with Abu Bakr. They hid in a cave. The next morning, the besiegers of Muhammad's house found Ali in his place. Angry, they searched all over Mecca. When the Quraysh came to know of Muhammad's escape, they announced a heavy reward for bringing Muhammad back, dead or alive. Pursuers scattered in all directions to find him, and eventually reached the threshold of the cave, but did not find him. The story goes that a spider had spun a web over the entrance of the cave, thus hiding the 2 refugees, creating the illusion no one had entered the cave in a while, because the spider's web had not been broken. Muhammad and Abu Bakr resumed their journey and were pursued by Suraqa bin Malik, but each time he neared Muhammad's party, his horse stumbled, and he finally abandoned his desire of capturing Muhammad. After 8 days of journey, Muhammad entered the outskirts of Yathrib. For 14 days, he stayed at a place called Quba and established a mosque there. After 14 days, Muhammad and Abu Bakr continued their migration to Yathrib, participated in their first Friday prayer on the way, and when they reached the city, were greeted cordially by its people. Yathrib came to be known as the city of the Prophet, Medinat an-Nabi, in short, Medina. It was the year 622 AD, the year Muhammad migrated to Medina. His migration is called the Hijrah. After Muhammad's death, this year would become the first year of the Muslim calendar, called the Hijri calendar. In Medina, Muhammad united the tribes under the constitution of Medina. He instituted brotherhood between the Muslims who came from Mecca and the Muslims of Medina. Also, the Jews and Christians were to be treated with respect and included in the community of Medina. Muhammad revealed that no one should be forced to convert to another religion. This new religious community became to be known as the Ummah. The Quraysh tried again and again to thwart the Muslims and to defeat them. 8 years of war followed with many battles and skirmishes. Despite their power, the Quraysh were not able to defeat them, and Muhammad's prestige among the Arabs grew. In the year 628 AD, or the year 6 Anno Hijra, Muhammad had a dream that he should go on pilgrimage to Mecca. He went with 1,400 Muslims and camped outside Mecca. There he made a treaty with the Meccans, starting a 10-year truce called the Truce of Hudaybiyah. During this truce, all hostilities were suspended, and Muslims were allowed to do their pilgrimage for Mecca next year. During this truce, Muhammad proclaimed his mission to the world and sent messengers with letters to the kings and emperors of the world, like the Roman Emperor of Byzantium, the King of Persia, the King of Ethiopia, the Patriarch of Egypt, and more. However, after 2 years of peace, the Meccans broke the peace by supporting a raid on a tribe allied with Muhammad. Muhammad sent a message to Mecca with 3 conditions. One of them was to declare the truce of Hudaybiyah null. The Meccans chose this option. Soon they realized their mistake and sent Abu Sufyan to renew the Hudaybiyah treaty, as you can see in this picture, a request that was declined by Muhammad. Muhammad began to prepare for a campaign. In the year 630, Muhammad marched on Mecca with 10,000 Muslim converts. He seized control over Mecca and almost no casualties were made. The people of Mecca were pardoned and most of them converted to Islam. Muhammad went to the Kaaba and destroyed the statues of the Arabian gods. However, new challenges lay ahead of the Muslim Ummah. A confederation of enemy tribes attacked and were defeated by Muhammad. For the next 2 years, other battles were fought against hostile tribes. It was now the year 632, and Muhammad completed his first truly Islamic pilgrimage, thereby teaching his followers the rites of the annual pilgrimage called the Hajj. After completing the pilgrimage, Muhammad delivered the famous speech known as the Farewell Sermon at Mount Arafat, east of Mecca. In this sermon, Muhammad advised his followers not to follow certain pre-Islamic customs. Also, that white has no superiority over black, nor that black has any superiority over white, except by piety and good action. He asked the Muslims to forget about their tribal feuds and declared the Ummah to be one tribe. He asked the Muslim men to be good to women, for they are powerless captives in your households. He told them that they were entitled to discipline their wives, but should do so with kindness. Before his death, most of the Arabian Peninsula had converted to Islam, and he had united Arabia into a single Muslim religious polity. A few months after the farewell pilgrimage, Muhammad fell ill and suffered for several days with fever, head pain, and weakness. He died on Monday, 8 June 632 in Medina, at the age of 62 or 63, in the house of his wife Aisha, with his head resting on Aisha's lap. He was buried where he died in Aisha's house. Today, still many pilgrims visit his grave with love and respect.